In summary, standardize your product in manufacturing to sustain the desired level of quality, shorten the processing time, and consequently reduce production costs. However, do not sell standard products. Customize them for the customer's secondary need and preferences, and charge them higher. Charge them higher prices. Moreover, do not sell to anybody. Target your customer segment to effectively respond to their primary needs and preferences. Effective managers focuses more on revenue to sustain profitability and growth. Follow the sequential strategies of 1, be better in levels of quality and lead time, be different through customization and facilitation, be more in revenues via product and market expansion. As my final comment, let me leave you with this cliche. If you have benefited from your AIM education and training, do not just say thank you. Show your money to indicate the level of appreciation.
Good evening. I was very, very worried preparing for this speech, but inspired by Professor June Bernardo's advice, tonight when I go home, I'll write on a piece of paper that tomorrow I will write a good speech. So if you can come back tomorrow, I will have a better speech. In the meantime, you have to put up with what I prepared. When I found out from Jay that I was to speak tonight, a few stories about Professor Edmo popped in my head. I think 2-3 years ago, we were to co-teach a public course on management creativity. Edmo and I have co-taught before. I was fortunate enough to be part of his team. I get a text message from him a few days before that said class, asking me out to dinner so that we could talk about that class. I assumed that it would be formalities, that at that dinner we would talk about the division of labor. Edmo would say, I will handle the first session, you handle the second. Then we would move on to talk about other topics. So I was surprised when I got to that dinner. I quickly found out that Edmo spent a substantial part of that day researching and learning about creativity. He spent the whole day, well, a big part of the day, watching documentaries, learning about the lives and practices of Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Edison, and Steven Spielberg. And there he was, like a kid, learning, sharing what he learned from school, telling me what he learned about creativity, as if he didn't know anything about it. We have to put that in context. Edmo has started exploring management creativity as far back as the 70s. He's written case studies on creativity. He designed an elective on creativity and intuition in AIM, and he wrote books on it. So this man knew so much about creativity. Yet there he was, practicing his personal mantra of making himself obsolete every day, assuming he didn't know anything about the topic. The second story happened, I think, a year ago. We were at Bayan Academy, where I am part of Edmo's team. And we were meeting for something, and he shared with us that the weekend prior to that day, he was walking around the mall, meandering along, when a movie poster, caught his attention. Connecting with what Jay earlier said about Shakespeare, this movie poster attracted Edmo because of the title. It was Shakespearean in title. It was The Fault in Our Stars. Now, for those who don't know The Fault in Our Stars, it's a teeny bopper, melodramatic soap opera movie about two teenagers falling in love and all that stuff. I haven't seen the movie. But it's so ironic when we were imagining the great Edmo watching a sappy teenage melodramatic movie. We were laughing our hearts out. But that laughter quickly subsided when Edmo started talking about the movie and his profound insights about the human spirit, the human will, in face of adversity. And quickly, we were inspired to watch the movie. I think that's one of Edmo's other roles in our lives, to make the mundane profound. The third story happened 2 days ago. We were again at Bayan Academy meeting with a former student of Edmo, Alan Capulong. I don't know if he's here. Alan Capulong, the great entrepreneur that he is, brazenly and bravely told Edmo that, "Sir, I haven't used your framework, Democratis Patres, in so long. I tried using it, but I couldn't use it. It didn't fit my business." He was brazen, you can imagine. Edmo was happy to hear that, though. His face lit up, and he said, "You know what? I haven't used that in so long myself. And I am so happy that you had the guts to tell that right in my face." And then Edmo proceeded to explain why he still espouses it. And he said the ME students need it. I teach in the ME now, and one of the things that they need to hone would be their logical, critical minds. So Edmo is espousing it because that's what they need. And I've seen Edmo teach and talk in front of different audiences, from the poorest of the poor to the multinationals of the world. And in every class, he customizes not only the context, but his approach to teaching. And I think that's because of his great empathy for people. So those three things, I think, are what makes Edmo a great man. His commitment, his lifelong commitment to learning, his ability to make sense of the world for us, to see the profound in the mundane, and to give us what we need based on our personalities, based on our potential. And those three things make him a great mentor. I think those are the three things that also make him a great man. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I was not surprised when you picked Aaron to talk about me. Frankly, he was my favorite student. Not that he was a genius, but in that MBA class, he was quite unusual. He was not the nerdy type. I sensed that he had another talent, another quality that most MBAs do not have. He had creativity. His mind can work in many unusual ways. And I admired that, so I prodded him. In second year, I offered a course on creativity and intuition. And true enough, he excelled. I don't know if he ever got to the Dean's List. I think he did. Yes. But maybe AIM was not the school for him. Maybe AIM was too much or too little for him. And that's a problem sometimes, that we come to the school with one methodology, case method, which teaches you analytical, logical thinking, when the world out there is looking today for creativity and intuition, for a mind that can work in many different ways. And so I like mentees like Aaron, and I deliberately look for them. One of my other mentees is Cecil Manikan, and we jointly developed the Managing the Arts. Oh, they got rid of that course. What is Managing the Arts doing here? We had ballet performances. We had repertory coming here. I wanted to expand the mindset of our students. That is not all about business, not all about numbers. The world is our oyster to discover. And it's very hard to move a school with a cherished technology one way of doing it, or it's not the right way. It's sad. Because when I got out of AIM, the world opened up and I said, wow, there's really a lot more. I am much honored also to follow after my mentor, June Bernardo. He was my thesis advisor. And I think the thesis has gone away already. But that thesis rigorously put you to the gauntlet of critical thinking and sharpened your mind. And so when I was looking for an advisor, I asked my classmates, who is the toughest of them? June Bernardo. They avoid him like the plague. That's my mentor, I said. That's my mentor. Why? Because we are students who come here to be forged into strong, capable managers and leaders. Would you like to be forged by weaklings? Or would you like to be forged by strong, powerful, and willful leaders? I chose June. He's one of the two professors I admire the most, and I'm honored to be following him. The other is the father of Titos, the late Dean Gaston Ortigas. I remember him fondly because I was the enfant terrible during his deanship days. I would be arguing with Gabi Mendoza and Mel Salazar and Bing Asansa and pushing this agenda or pushing that agenda. And sometimes Dean Gaston would tell me, Ed, let's have merienda. Oh my God, I'm done. So he'll bring me to Via Mare, and he will order halo-halo. I will order bibingka. And the whole afternoon I'm waiting. When is it coming? He doesn't say a word. But that eloquence of silence was enough for me to say, tone it down, my boy. Tone it down. Without a single word. I remember him for always asking one question, which keeps ringing in my mind every time I do consultancy. Do away with all the clutter. Only ask one question. Why is that important? Many times we get so enamored by what is not important, by the little things. We get so enmeshed in the mundane thing. I see students, ME students particularly, always trying to answer the phone, you know? And I said, why are you answering the phone? Oh, sir, I have to answer this. My salesman called asking for the price. Oh, I see. You are the slave of your people. They make you decide everything. And here you are feeling bossy, giving answers to everybody. I said, you are their slave. I'm sorry. But you're paying them to make you their slave. And so some of them have stopped doing that. I also agree with Jay that I am a true blue Machiavellian. Better to be feared than loved, yes. But he adds, but not hated. I am very, very honored to have been selected. I'm very proud. Terror of the Year for 12 straight years. Nobody can beat my record. One day I was teaching finance and we gave our midterm grades and I only passed 3 people. My good friend Juan Canapi, I hope he's not here, friend of Mila, gave everybody distinction, high pass plus, high pass. I went to him and said, Juan, you are in trouble. Huh? Yes. I'm in trouble? But you're the one who failed most of the students, not me. Oh, just wait and see. And next test, everybody was studying my subject. Nobody was studying his subject. At the end, he had to slowly reduce the grade inflation that he created. And slowly, I began passing my students. So who do you think became the #1 professor for that year? Juan or me? The answer is obvious. But the point is, MBA students want to be challenged. You cannot treat them like little kids that must be fed. You call it tough love. But that's it, tough love. The tougher, the better. And I wish that those days of old, when June and I were almost the only ones failing students, would never come back. Because I lamented it so that, in fact, we have designed the MBA such that you can actually fail so many subjects and still pass. So why is everybody so afraid to fail a student? I don't know. So that always perplexed me. But I think this is not my topic. Jay told me in his letter to talk about leading change. Frankly, a boring topic. But since he is the host, I will comply. And I wrote this in yellow pad before my secretary typed it. Huh? Because I write like the wind in my squiggly figures in yellow pad. I can write 4 or 5 times as fast than typing. Because they never taught typing at the Ateneo. They taught it in La Salle, but never the Ateneo. We were not destined to be clerks. I'm sorry, Jay. Seriously now. The 21st century has become a world of constant and continuous change. This is not only true for technology, it is also true for life careers. In the US, I've read, the top 10 jobs today are not the same as the top 10 jobs of the previous decade. With advances in health science, my stem cell doctors, and I've had several, tell me that 50 years from now, the average age of human beings will be 150 years old. They add, it is totally foreseeable that our species will discover how to perpetually stay young attaining that very elusive fountain of youth. Our bodies may become forever young, but can our minds, hearts, and souls be as youthful? I say this because we also live in a paradoxical age. While we push the frontiers of space, there are cultures that insist that their women be totally shrouded in black. There are societies that kill because of skin color, religious belief, or sexual preference. There are nations that refuse to share their knowledge and skills, to grow food, to heal the sick, and refuse to share, and to bring people out of poverty in order to protect their business interests. These cultures, societies, and nations still belong to an era long gone. However, they still walk the earth as the zombies of today. They are tethered to the past and have not learned to enlighten themselves. They have not learned to remove their yokes of ignorance and embrace the concept that we are one human race living in one planet, trying very hard to become the best that we can ever become. I always tell my students, the motto on my jacket, done by my student, in order to reach your full potential, you must make yourself obsolete every day. When you wake up in the morning, do you ask yourself, what is the new me today? That's the only way to go forward. But if you keep hearkening to the past, you remain in the past. I told June Villacorta, my friend out there and classmate, why is it that in company board meetings and management reviews, they spend 95% of the time arguing about financial statements in the past, and perhaps 5 minutes about their future? It should be the reverse. 5 minutes, do away with the past, and for God's sake, move on. Have you noticed your board meetings and meetings always about the past? Move on. As a professor and administrator, I had devoted 25 full-time years and 7 part-time years to the Asian Institute of Management. My biggest battle here at AIM was how to make the institution more responsive to the changing needs of a changing environment. In the 7 years of my part-time teaching, I was working heavily with government and non-government organizations, with people's self-help groups and associations, with international aid agencies and philanthropic corporations. I realized that the world outside AIM was not all business. Not all about financial bottom lines, but about social returns and environmental sustainability. Not at all concerned about competition, June Bernardo, but about collaboration. The world out there cares. A year after I returned full-time to AIM, I proposed that we design, develop, and offer the Master in Development Management. There was violent resistance from the not-so-wise old men, excluding June. But slowly, a group of 8 faculty, Titus is here, Bobby Roberto, I don't know about the others. A group of 8 faculty painstakingly created the MDM under the mentorship of the then Dean, Gaston Ortiga Sr. With his backing, the faculty and bank came around to accept that AIM is not just a business school. It is a management school that must answer to the different fields of endeavor where management expertise is needed. It was an arduous fight with the long process of voting and re-voting. I didn't realize that our top management and board of trustees were mainly composed of dyed-in-the-wool MBAs from Harvard, Stanford, Columbia, Wharton, and NYU. They must have been thinking, why is this brash young faculty member changing the nature of things? We are an MBA school, and forever we shall be one. The next battle was even more furious. While I was crafting an economic paper for former President Fidel Ramos, it struck me that in 1992, there were only 2,000 large firms in the country. This was the major market being targeted by AIM. Now there are 3,000. This was barely 1% of the total number of firms. What about the 99% composed of mainly micro, small, and medium firms who wanted to grow and prosper like the big ones? Why isn't AIM responding to them? That's when the insight hit me that we need to offer a Master in Entrepreneurship course, but AIM was not yet academically ready to plunge into that. However, in 1995, the faculty agreed to fund my research proposal to write case studies and texts on Asian entrepreneurs cutting across the continent from India to Indonesia. In 1999, the ME was born. It was a cesarean operation. Why offer a course that did not require high GMAT or AMAT scores? Well, because entrepreneurs are not the nerdy types. They admitted this. They've completed their college degrees and are running businesses relatively well. They have great EQ, if not fantastic IQs. Why run a course without exams and quizzes? Well, because the rigor of the course is not in passing a test, but in applying what students learn to their business. They will be evaluated according to their 1, profitability, 2, productivity, 3, professionalism, 4, people upliftment, 5, paradigm shifting, and 6, and most important, personal transformation. To make a long story short, the course was reluctantly allowed to run. Everybody was surprised that almost 100 enrolled. At about the same time, the MBA began to suffer enrollment declines, particularly from the Philippines and other Asian countries, except India. I was also elected dean in 2000 and examined the statistics. The MBA was not cannibalizing the MBA because the student profile was very different. But there was one major variable that changed. Cheap long-term student loans were no longer available for the middle class who could not afford the steep tuition fees. In India up to today, such loans are available. I pointed out to the board that AIM's competitors have gone a long way while we were sleeping at the pansiteria. The top MBA schools around us were all heavily funded by their government. Name it, NUS, IIM, Hong Kong, Melbourne, Sydney, Japan. They're all heavily funded by government. There are within universities that have large coffers of funds. In these schools, I discovered 100% of the faculty had doctorate degrees, while AIM had less than 30%. Only because we said we don't need that. In the broader world scenario, MBA enrollments were also falling. Students were seeking alternative paths to prosperity or to career variety. The IT field was blooming with billionaires. The culinary arts was not just for kitchen cooks, but for gourmet masters. So why did AIM fall asleep at this time? It went to further stupor when it decided to close the ME down. We, the gurus of ME, were welcome at the Ateneo, where the course is still going strong. I tried to introduce other management degree programs such as health and education management because the managers of these institutions were enrolling in our short courses in droves. We had full classes, but they wanted a master's degree. Again, the AIM said that it's not our core competence. But the world was looking for courses that would translate the respective disciplines into the language and spirit of hard-nosed management. I even recommended an executive doctorate in leadership and management geared towards AIM alumni executives with vast practitioner experiences, but designed differently. Not so much the literature review, statistical type, but more a sharing of experiences and extracting theories from those experiences. Again, AIM said that this is not our core competence. AIM rejected that, but the Development Academy of the Philippines bought my unique doctoral designs, but aimed at presidents of universities and colleges. I was flabbergasted when 49 enrolled, the largest single doctoral enrollment I have ever encountered. The LaSalle University also accepted my doctoral design for the 210 superintendents of the Department of Education. But why was AIM resisting the change? An author I read called it educated incapacity. It is harder to change highly educated people because they tend to latch on to what they had learned during their time. They refuse to accept that the world has evolved. Another author called it fixated mindset. As people become older, either one of two things happen. One, they become wiser, more expansive in their worldview, and inclusive in their relationships with all sorts of people. Two, they become grumpy and cranky old persons who are intolerant about everything new and are forever hearkening to the good old days. The first secret, therefore, to surviving in the age of change is to be very open to new knowledge, new learnings, new discoveries. We should be perpetual students who possess the timeless beginner's mind. The second secret is to have an expansive, inclusive, and may I add, a sacred worldview. It is expansive because we should not put any limits on ourselves. After all, we all have 100 billion neurons that are largely underutilized. It is inclusive because we want to be part of all humanity, whose yearnings and aspirations are very much part of us. It is sacred because we value all existence. We all espouse the universal values of truth, love, happiness, justice, equality, and harmony. People are not commodities. The Earth's resources are finite and not just meant for us, but for future generations. So how does one develop the proper worldview for the age of change? To do this, one has to answer several philosophical questions. Who am I, and what is my role and purpose in this life? What does life and living in this world mean? How do I view people and humanity? What do I do with the talents and resources given to me so that I may become the best I can ever become? To answer this huge question, an Indonesian student of mine gave a metaphor. When asked what his worldview was, everybody in class laughed at his answer. He said, I am a pond, a small water pond. I was curious and asked what he meant. You see, sir, the water falls from the mountain tops. and flows into rivers and streams. Down near the foot of the mountain, some water flows into my pond until it overflows. The water finds downstream rivers and creeks until it reaches the ocean. But the sun evaporates the water into clouds that find their way back to the mountain, where it flows again down to my little pond. Explaining further, my student said, I am a perpetual learner in life, trying to absorb everything that comes my way, but not for the purpose of hoarding knowledge. It is to share all that I know and am with one and all, so that in return I'll get back and give back 1,000,000 times over. Such a beautiful worldview, such an expansive, inclusive, and sacred mind. To be open and ready to accept change is one thing. To initiate and become an active leader of change is another. For the leader of change, 3 fundamental change drivers must be put in motion. First, change can be driven by an unwanted situation, an environment so toxic that people want change to happen. As a country, we have been suffering from such a toxic state of affairs, but nothing much has happened. Perhaps that is because the secular element of a unifying vision and direction set by a willful and determined leader who has a winning line of attack to achieve that vision is not there. The vision per se is not